Hey, Shalom, Shalom. It's the brother Abba Buff in the DC Church coming at you, giving all praise, glory, and honor to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahushua, Bahashem, Rakak Kudash, Yahweh being the Heavenly Father, Yahushua being whom the world ignorantly calls Jesus Christ, Bahashem meaning in the name, Rakak meaning Spirit, Kudash meaning holy. These are the names and the powers that I come to you in order to profess the 100% truth and Lord's will seal the elect's faith. Shenya Kabaga, whatever cause of claim not by Ith, meaning double honors to the elders and apostles of GMS in these times whom the Heavenly Father had enlisted the 100% truth to. And Shalom, Wabarakam, Labakam, Shiashala, peace and blessings be upon the elect of the nation of Israel. And to the men out there that's pushing this word in sincerity and in truth, to you I say Shalom, Wabarakam, Atham, peace and blessings be upon you. It's like it. Now, without further ado, the name of this video is going to be called, the deceivable vessel, the flesh, and I also say, don't be deceived by the flesh, which, that'd be like a subtitle, I guess. But really the understanding or the moral behind this video is due to a video that the Shatar Dawada, which is my brother, has sent us a video, or has sent me a video yesterday, or sent the video to our group chat, which I'm gonna show the video in a second. But I felt it was necessary to go over some of the details behind this video, because the flesh can deceive you, all right? And the flesh is a very deceptive vessel. And what feels good to the flesh isn't always good to the spirit, all right? Because the flesh doesn't have a moral compass. The flesh doesn't have it doesn't have spiritual sense, because it's carnality. It's full on, just straight up, physical. So physical is not able to determine spiritual. And being that that's the fact, sometimes things could feel good to your flesh and be extremely detrimental to your spirit, all right? Or sometimes things could appease the flesh. It could really disrupt your spirit. So we have to make sure that we're able to identify what is good to our spirit and not always good to our flesh, all right? And there are some times where, things that are, if you're a spiritual man, things that feel good to your spirit are also going to feel good to your flesh. And even when things feel good to your spirit and it doesn't feel good to your flesh, it still feels good, because you know that you've sided with the spirit, which is bringing peace to our maker, which, let me grab that real quick. This is Romans, the 8th chapter, verse 8. It says, there is therefore no condemnation to them which are in Hamashiach Yahushua, who walk not after the flesh, but after the spirit. For the law of the spirit of life in Hamashiach Yahushua hath made me free from the law of sin and death. For what the law could not do, in that it was weak through flesh, the Most High Yahweh, sending his own Son Yahushua in the likeness of sinful flesh, for sin, and it says condemned sin in the flesh, right? So the way he was able to condemn sin in the flesh is by way of number one, overcoming death. But the way that he overcame death was through the spirit and power of Yahweh and being blameless, all right? And being brought up as that sacrifice, and that lamb without blemish, all right? Nevertheless, with the other thing Yahweh Shai had did and had accomplished was the fact that he was capable of putting away temptation and putting away pleasures, the pleasures of this flesh, all right? Now, verse 5, Romans chapter 8, verse 5, for they that are after the flesh do mind the things of the flesh, but they that are after the spirit, the things of the spirit. And when you get in different translations, let me see. The book of Romans chapter 8, verse 5. Those who live according to the flesh have their mind set on what the flesh desires, all right? And the key to overcoming the flesh and in being victorious over the flesh is not having your mind set on the things that are fleshly. Now, of course, it's easier said than done. But at the same time, it's something that we have to continually practice in order for us to oversee the flesh, in order for us to overcome the flesh and be able to have power over the flesh. All right. Now, 1 second. I want to play this video real quick. And again, like I said, the main point behind this this video is that do not be deceived by this vessel, which is the flesh. What feels good to this flesh isn't always good to your spirit. And if you keep that in mind, you're going to continue to strive against what just feels good to the flesh. You're going to consistently do what feels good to your spirit. And you know, I let me bring this out real quick before I 1 second. I think it's book of Jeremiah chapter 17 verse 9. It says, the heart is deceitful above all things and desperately wicked. Who can know it? And this is important because, of course, you got to, first and foremost, there's a difference between your spirit and there's a difference between your, like, how do I put it? Like, really, this kind of brings it down. There we go. Now, peep this. There's a difference between the carnal mind and the spiritual mind. Now, this is kind of one of the main points that I wanted to make too. So when you go to Romans chapter 8 verse 6, it says, for to be carnally minded is death. So there's a difference between the carnal mind and the spiritual mind. Now, they're both in the same vessel. They're both in the same, housed in the same place. But the difference is that the spiritual mind is geared toward things that are wrapped around biblical and righteous constructs. The fleshly mind, or the carnal mind, is wrapped around what just feels good to flesh. All right, because all of your thoughts are processed in the same place. That's why it says the heart is desperately wicked. So innately, our heart is desperately wicked. But the fact of the matter is that because we've sided with the spirit, we're able to differentiate the spirit, the carnal mind, and the spiritual mind. But again, the heart is deceitful and is desperately wicked. All right. And it says, who can know it? So we've mastered learning ourselves so that we're capable of differentiating the spiritual mind and the carnal mind, or the carnal mind and the spiritual mind, right? So it says, the heart is deceitful above all things and desperately wicked. And it says, who can know it? Now, this is important, right? Because with all that being said, it's easy for us to be deceived by what just feels good. All right. And the thing is, what is good? What is good? Good is just pleasure. What is pleasurous to your flesh? All right. And what is pleasurous to your flesh, again, does not always benefit your spirit, and primarily does not always benefit your spirit. And it's because what is in this world. Now I'm gonna go to this video real quick.
Now, Siddhartha, come with me.
Fair use.
The pleasures of the flesh will only bring about pain and suffering. True happiness does not and never will exist in such pleasures. The devil, you are the daughters of Mara. And yet there must be the light of angels within each one of you. You have merely forgotten this, and so you are filled with greed and driven to do evil. That is why you must suffer in hell. If you wish to be beautiful like an angel, make your heart and mind beautiful.
Yeah, man. So in order for you to be beautiful, you got to make your heart and your mind beautiful. It's not what you have on the outside. But the fact of the matter is that he said pleasure, this level of pleasure will do nothing but, it make you suffer. It will give you pain. Because the thing is, again, you can be deceived. You don't want to be deceived by, oh shit, this feels good, so maybe it is good, because you can be doing things that are lawful, that feel good, but are just not expedient to your spirit, because you yourself didn't learn yourself enough to understand what's actually good for your spirit. But that's why it's good for us to go through these experiences, so that we can identify what works for us and what doesn't. Now, with all that being said, the way for us to really be able to definitively determine what's good for us and what's not good for us is being able to, again, separate the two, the carnal mind and the fleshly mind, right? Now, this is Romans chapter 7, and I'm going to start at the top and kind of speed read, right? It says, "Know ye not, brethren, for I speak to them that know the law, how that the law hath dominion over a man as long as he liveth. For the woman which hath an husband is bound by the law to her husband so long as he liveth. But if the husband be dead, she is loosed from the law of her husband. So then if, while her husband liveth, she be married to another, she shall be called an adulteress. But if her husband be dead, she is free from the law, so that she is no adulteress, though she be married to another man. Wherefore, my brethren, ye also are become dead to the law by the body of Hamashiach, that ye should be married to another, even to him who is raised from the dead." And again, we are legitimately tied in, or we have made soul ties. We have bonded with Yahawashi HaMashiach, which allows us the power, because you legitimately need power. You need to wield power in order for you to be able to differentiate what's good and what's not good for your spirit. That is only it's literally something that only a spiritual man can obtain, because that is not a carnal gift. That is a spiritual gift. And the only way that we can acquire that spiritual gift is through the man who defeated death itself, which is Yahawashi HaMashiach, right? So again, it goes to say, it says, "Even to him who is raised from the dead, that we should bring forth fruit unto the Most High, Yahweh. For when we were in the flesh, the motions of sin, which were by the law, did work in our members to bring forth fruit unto death. But now we are delivered from the law, that being dead wherein we were held, that we should serve in newness of spirit and not in the oldness of the letter." Now, this is where Christians get caught up. See, you don't have to follow the law. But then when you go to Matthew's, the 5th chapter, it tells you how he came not to destroy the law, but to fulfill it. So really what this means is that there are certain rules and regulations that are not applicable because we are in captivity. But it does not mean that we disannul the full entire law. It just means that there's something more primary, which is the spirit and faith in Yahweh Shema Shai, which justifies us during the times that we fall. But there's still a standard. There's still a foundation. There's still an outline of what we can and can't do. That's what the law is, all right? Now, even with that concept being in mind and knowing that there are do's and don'ts of what we can and can't do, that will tell you, okay, if we can't do these things and my flesh is telling me to do these things and I have pleasure in doing these things, but it makes my spirit feel bad, then maybe it's not fucking good for me, because anything that's good for your spirit is legitimately good for you. All right. If it benefits your spirit, that means it's going to benefit your flesh, because the spirit comes first always. Verse 6, but now we are delivered from the law, that being dead wherein we were held, that we should serve in newness of spirit, of spirit. And that's the thing. The whole law is spiritual, and it's going to say that. The law is spiritual, but we are carnal, sold under sin. So it says, not in the oldness of the letter. What shall we say then? Is the law sin? Yahweh forbid. Nay, I had not known sin but by the law, meaning that those are the regulations. That's the foundation. How the hell are you going to know what sin is if you don't have a rubric to tell you, hey, this is right and this is wrong? So it goes to say, for I had not known lust, except the law had said, thou shalt not covet. But sin, taking occasion by the commandment, wrought in me all manners of concupiscence. For without the law, sin was dead. For I was alive without the law once, but when the commandment came, sin revived and I died. And the commandment which was ordained to life, I found to be unto death. Right, because we cannot follow it 100%. We are going to consistently fall. But that's part of the reason why keeping the law, statutes, and commandments 100% has never been a requirement for us in this everlasting chain of darkness. Now, if you want to do that and you want that to be the standard for you, you can go ahead and die doing that. But we have the spirit and power of Yahweh B'Shem Yahushai on us to justify us for when we fall short, which we inevitably will. All right. So it says, verse 9, for I was alive without the law once, but when the commandment came, sin revived and I died. And the commandment which was ordained to life, I found to be unto death. For sin taken occasion by the commandment deceived me, and by it slew me. And again, do not be deceived by what feels good to your flesh. All right. Because sin will deceive you. And the way that sin is deceptive is that it will pretty itself up and it will make it feel amazing to your flesh. Satan dwells in pleasure. All right. So if we know Satan dwells in pleasure, the scriptures say it's better for us to go to the house of mourning than the house of what's it called? Of mirth. All right. Verse 12. Wherefore the law is holy, and the commandment holy and just and good. Was that which is good made death unto me? Yahweh forbid. So the law wasn't set here for us to continually die. The law was set here for us to have rules and regulations for us to actually live. Now, when we actually are put in these new vessels that are extra terrestrial, yeah, because I'm thinking celestial means celeste is like of heaven or angelic. You know, when the Lord puts us in these extraterrestrial bodies that are capable of living and being immortal, we don't have to worry about, you know, not following the law. Now, verse 13, it says, was then that which is good made death unto me? Yahweh forbid. But sin, that it might appear sin, working death in me by that which is good, that sin by the commandment might become exceeding sinful. For we know that the law is spiritual, but I am carnal, sold under sin. And see, that's the thing. The law has always been a spiritual thing, but we ourselves have always been subject to, or we ourselves have always subjected ourselves to carnal ordinances. And that's what makes the difference between a spiritual man and a natural man and a spiritual man. Because a natural man will continually subject himself to that which is natural, but a spiritual man is going to understand how to reform his ways, reform his thoughts, reform his life, reform the way that he is collectively in order for him to make way for the spirit to intervene in his actions. All right. He's going to do what he needs to take, or he's going to do what it takes in order for him to become a spiritual being. And the way that you become a spiritual being is by setting aside carnality, not always doing what feels good. For that which I do, I allow not. For what I would, that I do not. But what I hate, that I do. And we have no choice but to do it. It sucks. We have no choice, but we're subject to doing these things because we are carnal beings. We're carnal, we're spiritual men, we're spiritual individuals in carnal flesh. And that's the whole plight. That's our whole shindig. That's our whole that's legitimately our whole battle. All right. It says, if then I do that which I would not, I consent unto the law that it is good. Now then it is no more I that do it, but sin that dwelleth in me. And see, that is the big difference. You have individuals who are legitimately sinners, and then you have an individual who is righteous and sin dwells in him, because that is the conditions of the battle. All right. But the fact of the matter is that you have to be able to identify and differentiate, nah, it's the sin that's in me that will cause me to fall into these pitfalls. And the thing is, it sounds like a cop-out, but it's legitimately not. We are in everlasting chains in darkness. Like, we are legitimately in this flesh. Like, we can't do anything about it up until Yahushua comes and he saves us. But the fact of the matter is, do not be deceived by this flesh. This flesh will deceive you. And the way that it deceives you is by pleasure, primarily. All right. Because pleasure is always going to feel good to this flesh, but it's not always going to feel, and it's not going to benefit your spirit at all. All right. So that was the main point that I wanted to make behind this video. And, you know, I pray that you are edified. I pray that you are exhorted. I give all praise, glory, and honor to Yahweh B'Shem Yahushua, B'Shem Yahushua, Shem Yikabait, God, brother, Rakaza, Koyina, Ba'aith, Shalom, Barakum, Bakar, and Shayasha Allah. Until next time, I can say Shalom.